This is my brother Brandon. Him and I live in the province of Alberta, Canada, known for its cold winters, its prairies, and its stunning mountains. Now, despite living here our whole lives, we never really traveled too far within the province. We've gone on little trips here and there, but nothing substantial. So last summer, we planned something special for the two of us. Our whole lives we've bonded over adventure and exploration, mostly through video games, but we've wanted to take a little road trip for a while. We just faced a few issues. Firstly, Alberta's big. Not the biggest province in Canada, but decently large. It'd be exhausting just getting out of the province. Secondly, we didn't have that much time scheduled. We couldn't go anywhere too far. And third, we only had cash. Eventually, we came up with an idea. Over the span of a few days, we would drive all over Alberta and search for the least known, possibly weirdest landmarks we could find. Our climax of the trip, what we would end off on? The world's largest pierogi. That's right, the biggest pierogi in the entire known world. So with it settled, we began packing and planning. Together, we came up with a route, and the next day we met up. Starting in the city of Calgary, we headed west. Now, as soon as we hit the mountains, it began storming with rain as if God himself was giving us a sign that the trip was cursed. But we ventured forward. Our first landmark of the trip was an abandoned Cold War bunker site. Now, during the Cold War, construction of a top secret bunker was underway, hidden within the mountains of Alberta, in order to house some sort of important documents. The development was never finished, and it was just left here as is. Aircraft patrolled.
Yeah.
Aliens.
Don't drop napalm on me.
Dude, there's aliens.
In order to get to it, we had to park the car and hike up a trail for a bit. You want to see the bunker?
See the bunker?
Who's at the bunker? Ronald Reagan? Until we reached this. So naturally, we went inside. The cave was empty, thank God, and so incredibly dark. Filming the inside was next to impossible, but we got a few shots of some devil graffiti, a weird nest of sorts, and we spent a fair amount of time in the cave, but finally it was time to head off. We had much more to see, more places to go, and to get there, we had to leave the mountains. Now, leaving the mountains sounds like an easy task, and by all means it should have been, but it wasn't. Being out there, our phones had no signal, and we were to rely on a good old-fashioned paper map for the next hours. Now, one thing I'll say, the scenery in the mountains are the nicest of the whole trip in my opinion. It was a beautiful drive through here. But then, something happened.
Excuse me? Are you the cows at large? I'm here to bring you in. Excuse me.
What are dogs?
We don't know where these cows came from, or why they were on the road, or where they were going, but there weren't any farms around. Oh, he's scared.
Brandon, turn around.
Ooh, his butt's really poopy.
I'm not even joking, it's all over.
Why are you so poopy? Whoa. Down there. It's so deep.
Hey, buddy. Hi, buddy. Hey, baby. Look at all the ones outside the fence. I don't know how they got there. After a long while, we finally got back en route and started heading south, out of the great west wilderness as the sun began to set. From here out, it was a long, dark drive. heading through different little towns on our way to our next stop.
This road, right?
What about it?
You know what they say about this road? This baby is called Ghost Grove. They say that 100 years ago. 100 years ago, there was two brothers in a Ford Ranger.
Did you see that just now?
What?
It was like red lightning over there. I'm not even joking.
Dude, that's what I'm talking about. They saw a lady,
What did the dog do?
and they stopped. They stopped to help her, and they asked, "Are you okay? What's wrong, ma'am? What are you doing over here alone?" And she killed them.
Holy moly.
She killed them. And they say that if anybody drives on this road in a Ford Ranger,
Yeah.
they see the woman, and their car stops.
Oh yeah.
They don't even stop. The car stops
Okay.
instantly for her, and
Instantly,
then she kills them both.
Wow.
And her name,
Peep peep.
Achman.
Oh no!
At just before midnight, we hit Vulcan, a small tourist town in Alberta dedicated to Star Trek. At this point, we had two choices. It was late, so we could sleep in the truck, or we can try and find a hotel at this hour, only with cash. This isn't something very common where we live. Most places require a credit card, but we figured there was no harm in trying the latter. So, we found a small little motel and walked in. I don't have any footage of this, but basically the place was empty with a sign that had a number. We phoned it, and a little man came out of her room, one who we'd obviously just woken up. He took our cash, no questions asked, and gave us a room. Now, Brandon and I both agree this was the point in the trip where we peaked. We don't know if that's a good thing, but this was the peak for us. 2 warm beds in a musty yet comfy little motel room with Seinfeld on the old cable television provided. The next morning, we woke up and got some breakfast before facing our next issue. So, when planning the trip, we happened upon a landmark we wanted to see in a place called Bow Island. Now, neither of us knew of Bow Island, neither did our family, nor were there that many records of it online at the time. But out in Vulcan, we had trouble finding GPS routes to get there.
Where's Bow Island at?
Oh no, bro!
Coordinates. It's the internet says that Pinto
This is the
McBean-
only answer. Look.
Bow Island, Alberta, Canada.
Okay, it
Pinto
doesn't help me.
McBean.
So, where is Pinto McBean? Bow Island. Where is Bow Island? I don't know.
1 hour and 54 minutes doesn't seem that
It
bad.
says it's off Highway 3. Okay, I guess there's an airport there. I guess that's where we're going.
We found Bow Island.
Eventually, finding our way, we began a long, empty drive to Bow Island. Now, when I say empty drive, I mean empty drive. For hours, there was nothing but flat land for miles. This would be the first of many miles of nothingness that would result in our eventual loss of sanity. But for now, we held on to the hopes and excitement we still had for Bow Island.
5 minutes away from Bow Island. How do you feel?
Defeated.
I won't lie. Pretty quick, we ran out of enthusiasm and just wanted to arrive at our next stop.
I've been driving in an empty field for the past 3 hours.
But eventually, several brain cells later, we did.
Look. Bow Island.
It exists.
Canadian Badlands.
This is our paradise.
Bow Island.
Island.
Better hand the sign, Brandon.
Both.
I'll go right in the middle.
Welcome to Bow Island, baby. Bow Island. Yes, I got it.
Pinty McBean was our third landmark of the
So
trip.
tall.
A little pinto bean statue in a tiny village in obscure Alberta. Why was it here? We don't know. But there we were, back on the road, heading northeast now, towards Drumheller for our next landmarks.
Post Bow Island McBean update.
Never come to Bow Island. It's the worst place in the world. It's worse than Detroit City.
It's not.
Now, when we thought the drive to Bow Island was bad, this one made that look like a heaven. There was a moment where we stepped out and just stared around us. We could see miles around us in every direction, yet we couldn't see anything. We got back in the truck and continued the mind-numbing drive until we hit it. The Badlands! Now, Alberta is home to a few different biomes, but one of the cool ones are the Badlands, where Drumheller resides. Here, we found our next landmarks. The world's largest dinosaur, in which there's a viewing deck inside the mouth, and this tiny little church you can enter. It's just a little church, but we were drawn to it. I got this photograph of Brandon that makes him look straight up scary, and from there, we hit another small roadblock. It was getting dark, and both motels in town weren't accepting vacancies, so we decided to head out and try to find a campsite. We encountered the most crowded campsite of all time. This campsite was so packed with people, there were actually 0 lots available. At this point, we looked at our map and found something. Rowley. Now, as kids, a friend of ours always told us about this town he'd go to called Rowley. Him and his family would go quadding there because it was a ghost town, allegedly. According to him, no one's lived or been there in ages. This was it. We'd go and camp in Rowley. We got closer and closer until we hit the town, and were met with hundreds of people. I regret not recording this so much. We drove through a sea of people and music and food carts. There was some sort of festival going on in Rowley. Cars were parked flooding the streets, and we were dumbstruck. Wanting so badly to just sleep, we didn't even get out and ask what we were seeing. We simply moved on. We found one last campsite 20 minutes away, and we went for it. We arrived as it was getting really dark and found a lot quickly. We put up a tent from the truck, made a fire in the fire pit out of loose twigs, and sat in the dark, eating grocery store sandwiches and salads over a fire. Eventually, we slept in the tent and woke up to the most beautiful fog looming over the site.
So, we reached a campsite last night. We didn't have service, but we camped here for the night. Paid $25 to have a lot, basically. And now it's the morning. It is 7:23 a.m. And we are about to head out to the pierogi.
Before we knew it, we were heading back out for our next and final landmark. Heading further northeast was a long drive, through several quaint little towns. Eventually, slightly tired, we arrived in Glendon. A small town out east, it was here. Everything we'd been through was for this moment. We did it! The world's largest pierogi. We made it at last. We spent a good amount of time taking in the beauty, taking photos. This was the origin of my profile picture. The street the pierogi was on is Pierogi Drive. Incredible. At last, we had finally made it. While we finally hit our last landmark, we were far from being home. We still had a long ways to go, but at this point, we were both drained. Over the course of the past few days, we'd been living off of supermarket deli food, junk food, and bananas. We figured there's a chance we could make it home before too dark of nightfall, so we went straight home. A little while on the trip, though, we heard something on the radio.
This is an Alberta emergency alert. Environment and Climate Change Canada has updated the possible tornado alert. This alert is in effect for Flagstaff County and Paintearth County.
Now, the area the warning was talking about was more or less exactly where we were. We were driving through a tornado.
We're doing great. We saw the big pierogi. Went to the store, got a lollipop. We're in a tornado. We got Stevie on the radio there. We're cruising. You know, it's actually a little bit of a nicer drive now. There's less of the sprawling fields and plains, and there's more hills and trees, and we're like in an actual tornado. So we're actually heading towards Edmonton right now. We're gonna see a little bit of that, a little bit of red deer, and then we'll eventually end up home. We've got another few hours to go, and Gavin will be doing another check-in. So yeah, wish us luck. I think we're gonna have a really good time.
Now, nothing actually came of it. It rained for a little bit, but just like that, we were out, heading back home again. We went through a lot of different towns and cities on the way back, saw some cool stuff, and eventually got back home. Overall, neither of us regret the trip in any way. It was goofy, fun, stupid, and a great story. We both went further than we'd ever been within the province. We bonded like crazy, learned a lot about ourselves and Alberta, like how many cows there are everywhere, how scary it is to walk to a grocery store in a tiny village, having everybody stare at you because they know you're not from around here.
This is the most empty grocery store I've seen in my life.
Or how many subways are in Alberta. Either way, it was a blast. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. Take care of yourself. Until next time.